Welcome into After Nebrasketball. That was among the most miserable 2 hours of my life. And I have had a terrible sports life. And I have had a miserable, I have had a sports life that really the last 20 years, 25 years has been characterized by horrendous hours, days, games. And yet somehow
that's Bigelow's entire life, Jack.
Somehow that's up there. That's up there. I know recency bias, yes, and we'll see how I feel 2 weeks from now. But that was another afternoon in hell. You know, once again, we've become so used to it, and we had another one. Final score: Michigan State 139, Nebraska 10. Let's see. Michigan State. I'm looking at the box score here. Rebounds: Michigan State 79. Nebraska 8, so they had a good lead on the boards, played the more physical game.
You're actually not that far off.
Let's see. Michigan State actually shot from mid-range shots 108% in that game. I believe, did Michigan State disprove math with that? It appears that they did with that game. So anyway, welcome, commiserate with us. I've been having was it the refs? Was it the team argument with people, which is also miserable. It's all terrible. It's all terrible. So I brought Jacob Bigelow. You'll see him to the right of your screen from Huskers Illustrated and the Stretch Big Pod, my normal co-host here from home today at a home game. Kaleb Henry as well from Husker Max. I'm Jack Mitchell from KLIN and the I-80 Club. And guys, let's break this one down. Let's get into the nitty-gritty, everything that went right, everything that went wrong. Jacob, 89-52. The score's on the bottom of the screen. I didn't want to pull it up. Jacob, start with you. Your thoughts. Great game. Tough effort. What did you like?
I don't think there was much of anything to like, to put it plainly. I think that's it's going to be tough to talk about today without – 1 second. It's going to be tough to talk about today and try to not you have to be somewhat as rational as you can be, because this isn't a football season, right? It's the first game of it's December and it's a long way to go. But now the first thing that popped into my mind was that arguably the two worst losses of the last 2 years came with 6 or more days to prepare for them. When we hear the Creighton game in Lincoln last season.
Okay.
And Fred Hoiberg, who it takes a lot to get him animated, was clearly animated on his post-game radio hit.
Where was that during the game?
That we just got done listening to before we came on the air. And he said, we didn't prepare well, and that's what pissed me off. And we've seen what elite preparation can look like for this team. We saw it 2 weeks ago in that Creighton game. And for that to be the big takeaway from the head coach with 6 days to prepare, when you were talking about how familiar you are with the Breslin Center and how familiar you are with Michigan State and Tom Izzo, and having to remind everyone, my son played there. I know Michigan State. We know the Breslin Center. And then for that to be the, and I'm not trying to make this a referendum on coaching or coaches by any means, but it's just awfully, disheartening to hear, with that much time to prepare and, the result that we, just bared witness to. I'm not trying to turn this into the post-game show version of an autopsy, but it's tough not to after how they were just thoroughly dominated from start to finish.
In your defense, Jacob, there's no one item about this game, any on the court, off the court, the way it was presented to us, every person involved with the game. There's no one positive thing I have to say about any of it. So no matter what, it's going to feel like this at this point. And we'll get into it. Trust me. Kaleb, your thoughts off the bat. Nebraska loses 52-89 to Michigan State. It was bad. What do you think?
Friggin' embarrassing. I hope that that's the way they're feeling in that locker room, is that was embarrassing. They to get to the point in the game where on the broadcast they're talking about, what's the most points Michigan State's ever won a conference game by? And you go, it's that bad? It's getting that bad. A 25-1 run early in the second half where you just went, okay, you got to break down 10. It's not out of control. It's not awful. You can still make plenty happen. Nebraska had their own 9-0 run in the first half. Plenty of game left. Friggin' embarrassing to come out of the break and have that type of performance. And we knew that Michigan State going into it was probably going to out-rebound Nebraska. But rebounding is two things. It's size and it's want to. Nebraska's got the size, and they showed zero want to today. So when you combine those, of course you were going to lose the rebounding battle by like 30 or whatever it was. Michigan State almost had as many offensive rebounds as Nebraska had total rebounds. 15 offensive rebounds. Nebraska had 19 total rebounds.
Wow.
That is nuts.
I knew it was bad, but wow.
State shot better than the last game out. But to come out, they hit the first one, and then they didn't shoot an unreal clip, but they shot well above their season average. Nebraska shoots, well, the defense didn't show up, the offense didn't show up. I know there was a team in red out there. Who from Lincoln showed up in East Lansing today? It wasn't anyone for the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Wow. Final numbers on the rebounding. Kaleb was referencing those. Nebraska, 19 total rebounds, 4 offensive rebounds. And that's shooting 18 for 54 on field goals. So a lot of opportunities on field goals, but didn't get a lot of them. Michigan State, 48 rebounds, 12 offensive rebounds during the game. Up 48-19. And to me, that is, if you're kind of ranking your concerns about Nebraska, and for me, it is just how much bigger Michigan State felt against Nebraska, especially on the boards, but defensively. And I know they're one of the bigger teams, and they played more of their bigs, I think, than they usually do as well. But goodness sakes, it felt like going back when Nebraska played with the itty-bitty committee to some degree on the boards. And that was, and then just the inability for Nebraska to really have a presence in the post defensively throughout the game. And Braxton Mia found himself in foul trouble constantly. But that, to me, shots weren't falling as well. Nebraska wasn't also making layups, not layups, but some difficult drives that Bryce in particular wasn't making those. I think sometimes those will fall, but my concern is matching up with Big Ten teams now.
Oh, guys. No, Jack. Nebraska was not making layups either. Shot under 50% on layups.
Yeah. Like there's no good there's no saving grace really to find to talk about. I don't know. What is it? Andrew Morgan's play? Maybe?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. Andrew Morgan goes for 14 points, makes 6 of 13 from the field, team high 7 rebounds. But the team gets outscored by 23 while he's on the floor.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like, you played kind of good. Team got just paddled.
And missed it.
Doesn't matter who was out there.
14 points on 13 shots too. I mean, that's
13 shots.
That's not like, it's like he was like, they tried to make the case on the broadcast that he was the lone bright spot. And I'm just like, 14 points on 13 shots. I mean, if we're grasping hard if we're going to call that a break. But I mean,
if we want to grasp, should we have gotten more Cale Jacobson? He was plus 7 in his 9 minutes.
I mean, I think it's clear that he has moved ahead of one of the Big Ten transfers in the rotation after what we saw
Caleb
today.
And I talked about on Friday, right?
Yeah. I think that much is clear. I mean, Nebraska made 4 threes today. He made a fourth of Nebraska's 3-pointers today.
Well, and Jacob, I mean, if size is at a premium, I mean, I know he's not 7 foot tall, but I mean, you're not gonna be able to you can't get pushed around like they did today. Completely pushed around. And let's see, 10 minutes into this, I can say that when they were pushed around, oftentimes it was a freaking foul, and you never freaking called them. Okay, guys, there was plenty plenty to, and we've talked for 10 minutes about Nebraska's failures. So you don't talk about bad calls. I could have played better, people. We did it for 10 freaking minutes. Now let me go. Let me cook. The rebounding officiating in that game was atrocious. It was bad all over the board, and it was favoring Michigan State throughout the game. Yes. But what happened with the rebounding and the way that they called Aaron Eulis in one game was a victim of 3 of the worst officiating calls on a rebound I've ever seen. One player.
Okay. I will give you a lot of calls. I will give you a lot of calls today. I will give you Connor Essegian's flagrant. I will give you so many calls. Someone sit Aaron Eulis down and show him how to box out.
He's got to get a body on it. But
he is 5'10" or whatever he is, standing on a box out there with grown men with giants in the trees, and he just goes, "Well, let me run down, be a foot away from the basket, and try to jump." That's not going to get the job done. The other guys just jumped higher.
On the third one, the ball is above his head. He's about to get his hands on it, and the guy makes contact to his back and grabs it from behind him. He's got position on that. That third one was insane.
Okay,
that was terrible.
And do you know what happens if he takes half a step back, makes contact, and then goes after the ball?
Okay. Bad calls and bad play are not mutually exclusive. I might need to get that tattooed on my neck.
It's called boxing out. Aaron Eulis did not box out. I'll give you all of the other calls you want for today. Aaron Eulis didn't box out.
Okay, whatever. The rebounding. Okay, fine.
Most
don't use that. I
didn't box out today either.
Disagree still on that, but the rebounding officiating was ridiculous. It doesn't even end there. I mean, come on. Like Michigan's, some of the third foul on Braxton Mia, insane. Right.
Yep.
And then Sean Morris wants a hook and hold on it. Like, come on. Look, I mean, like, it's pick your other one then. If they were ridiculous, and they did not change. Nebraska's margin in getting beat on the boards, Kaleb, as we said for 10 minutes, was about them. Right.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
They also, I think, got completely disheartened at some point, which you can't do. They got completely disheartened about how that game was being called.
Yeah,
and that played into the lack of the complete ridiculousness in the second half, in my opinion. Like,
if you're not hitting shots, the other team is hitting shots, and the officiating for the most part is not going your way. Yeah, that starts to add up. That's how you end up with that. That's how you end up with a 37-point difference. How good is that drama school in East Lansing? They have got to be putting out some freaking, like, they are going to get some Oscars. Like, those, send them straight to LA.
Pierre
Wright was watching this game for pointers. Okay.
Everything was bad. The way Nebraska played, the way the game was officiating, the way the game was announced on the Big Ten Network. Oh my gosh. I can't do them anymore, guys. I can't do them anymore. I'm going to have to figure out how to sync the radio. I can't do it anymore with he who shall not be named. Can't do it. Won't do it.
If you're looking for how to sync the radio, Dave Fight with Husker Max has got a good guide for you.
But it was rough. It was rough. The calls were not going their way. And like, to be honest, guys, like, that's going, I'm hopeful there will not be a situation quite like that one, officiating wise. That said, Nebraska kind of offensively needs to be able to get to the free throw line, right? Mm-hmm. Like, how much do you think, Jacob, that factored into the offensive struggles? Just weren't getting to the line and missing it when they did.
I think that definitely played a part. I mean, that is, we've talked about, like, if shots aren't falling, like, you've got Bryce Williams, you've got Juwan Gary, guys who can, try to go get, they still got to the line 18 times, but they missed 6. It's definitely of something that, they've shown is very beneficial for them when they have it going for them. But I was more, and obviously when you lose by 37, you're going to be more concerned with the defense. Fred Hoiberg said after that North Florida game on Sunday, and I know North Florida is not Michigan State, but this goes to the way they defend and how they are going to, their defensive game plan throughout the year. It's, you either got to, take away the three or take away the paint. you can't let a team have both. And Michigan State, who shot 40% from three today, and they scored 32 points in the paint. I mean, that alone, I mean, that's let me do math. Just on threes and points in the paint, I mean, that's more points than Nebraska scored, I think. Just looking at that math, I mean, and that's just, that goes into how they, that goes to how they, how they're going to defend, how it's going to be. And I mean, and full transparency, I liked this matchup for Nebraska coming into this game today, looking at the personnel and looking at the, guys 1 through 5. I liked this matchup for Nebraska. And now, I can't take this, this final score as a, referendum on the year or the season or whatever.
No,
I mean, now they've got another long layoff to prepare for a team even bigger than Michigan State, who is going to come in with, I mean, could be a scene in the Post on Friday in Lincoln with Indiana and Umar Ballo and Mackenzie Mbako coming into Lincoln.
But weirdly, Nebraska's defended that team unbelievably well over the years, too, when Indiana's brought in there. I still can't believe what Nebraska did to Kaleb Ware last year.
Yeah.
And again, but that's not really what was happening today, though, right? That's not what was happening. They weren't getting murdered offensively by athletic bigs necessarily.
No.
They were getting killed on the boards.
Yeah,
right?
When you think athletic bigs, you don't think Jackson Kohler and Simon Zapala or Carson Cooper. You don't think the guy who's wearing double armbands and the guy with the Batman mask when you think athletic bigs. And they just punked Nebraska.
Why did they make the nose so big on that thing?
I don't know. It looked like an Edgar Allan Poe. It looked like an Eric.
Like it puts him in a bad position. I don't think that's.
No, it looked like an Eric. He looked like an Edgar Allan Poe character, but that's fine.
It looked like one of those scary oldie time Halloween costumes, right? That you like Google Halloween in the 1908, and
like a plague doctor. Looked like a plague, like a plague, like
plague, like he's avoiding the plague. Yes,
something like that. But I mean, it's just I'm just still trying to process it because I just, I didn't think too highly of Michigan State. I thought they were good, but I didn't think they were
good. They play good defense.
They did.
They played such good defense.
And we haven't talked about this yet. They denied the hell out of Connor Rashesian.
They did the whole Casey thing.
They did. They denied getting him the ball from start. I mean, the minute he only took 2 shots, but I mean, he played 20 minutes, finished with 1 point at the free throw line. They denied the ball away from him so well. I mean, it was arguably in the same vein as the way Nebraska denied the ball from Kalkbrenner 2 weeks ago. Just the way it was. I know.
You just made me happy.
I mean,
my happiness.
It was in an eerily similar vein. The way they were defending him, denying the ball to him. I mean, and on the perimeter compared to in the post. But I mean, it was eerily similar, and they did it to perfection.
Well, since you brought up Kalkbrenner, is it time we play our newest game?
What's that?
Who's that Kalkbrenner? Anyway, there were 3 Spartans today who went 0 for 1 from the field.
Nice job.
Gehrig, Normand, and Nick Sanders. Congratulations. The 3 of you are today's Kalkbrenner.
Nick Sanders, son of Barry. That is Barry's son.
That's Barry Sanders' kid?
Yes, that is Barry Sanders' son. That is why he wears 20, and that's why those fans were losing it. Well, part of it, because they love walk-on guards, but that is Barry Sanders' son, so the more you know.
Interesting.
Okay. All 3 of those players, by the way, the only players on the entire Spartan roster to finish with a negative plus-minus.
Cool.
Look at that. Look what we got going for us.
Good times.
Hey, Bigelow, I'm curious about your thoughts on this. It looked like for a lot of the game, and Nebraska struggled with this getting back defensively, the pace that Michigan State wanted to play with. It looked like that was a big advantage for the Spartans.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think this was far and away. I mean, I talked about this, going into this game. I think this is far and away going to be the most athletic, group of wings and guards that Nebraska had seen so far. And the pace was definitely a problem. I mean, Michigan State finishes with 18 fast break points. But I mean, when you've got a guy, and I mean, I think there's no better example of like what the pace they wanted to play at than that sequence where Cohen Carr blocks Juwan Gary at one end and he's down at the other end as quick as he can to go up and try to catch an alley-oop. Like that's a different level of athleticism, and that's just one guy. But I mean, guys like Akins, guys like Fears, I mean, they're all really athletic dudes, and it's a step up compared to the perimeter guys that Nebraska had seen today, and it was definitely a problem. It was definitely an issue. I mean, they I don't think if you look at this Nebraska roster on paper, you think roaring athleticism looking at any of the guys from top to bottom, but I mean it was definitely a problem. I don't know that there's going to be there's going to be many. I mean, there's a couple teams in the Big Ten with like similar makeup, but I mean, Michigan State may be a cut above in terms of the pace that they're capable of playing at when you look at the rest of the conference.
My big question is just if you're not gonna be able to get open perimeter shots, you don't have enough shooters to have a bunch of options to do that. What is and you don't necessarily have a big, right, that's gonna be a huge offensive threat. You gotta have Bryce, and I think to some degree Juwan, scoring at the rim, right? Like that's the next line. And like at the very beginning of the game, Michigan State gets up 7-0, and Bryce and Juwan both go to the rim in the next couple of minutes. Nebraska clamps down on defense. Bryce and Juwan both go to the rim, out athletic their guys, score at the rim, and then Bryce hits a three, I think, and like you didn't see that again the rest of the game. They weren't. I mean, they tried. Bryce tried. But when he went to the rim, he did not ever have a good shot. I mean, he rarely had a good shot. And he was, he tried the high off the backboard. He tried a lot of stuff that he often makes too, but he wasn't making them. But still, like, I just don't know what the option is if you're not going to have a season going for, 18 or 20. It should be Bryce is the answer.
Yeah. And Bryce and Juwan both went 50% shooting on twos. The problem is they combined to shoot 10 shots was all between the two of them inside the 3-point line. I would love it if Juwan would exchange a couple of those 5 3-pointers he took for some twos and getting into the lane and some stuff in there. So far too many that he's shooting beyond the arc, especially if they're not falling. Like if he goes 3 for 3, like sure, fire up another one, man. Let it fly. But that's not the case, and that's not who he is. You're right, Jack. I still need to see more of and we talked about this yesterday, Bryce Williams say, I'm going to go get some buckets for a couple of trips in a row. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's just, it's not there. And that's something that you had, think about with Sam Griesel. Very different player. Not the same scorer Bryce Williams is at all. But if things were going poorly, he would go back someone down into the lane and get a bucket, and you felt like you could get things back on track.
There were a couple of times where when the game was not out of hand yet where Raleigh tried to be that person, and he kind of did. Like he had a little bit, obviously it didn't last long, but he had a little bit of success saying, okay, fine, you're going to give me a mismatch here. I'm going to go down low and score. And so occasionally he did that, but that kind of went away for whatever reason too. And again, you got down so much. They lost the ridiculous rebounding and defensive numbers, Kaleb, that you started with. I mean, the effort was done at some point in the second half, pretty obviously.
And you only got 14 minutes out of Berke. Think about how much different.
You just didn't.
He
hit that 1-3, but offensively, was that the only basket he had? Maybe he had one more.
No, that was it.
Jeez. Yeah, he's the other one, right? That you've got to get some offense from. If you're not going to have a season out there. Did you guys think, and again, I have opinions on the way that this happened with the officiating, but Mia couldn't stay on the court because he got fouls right away. And I know they're right. He's got his critics that are out there too. But he couldn't stay on the court much. How much, if they could have gotten another 10 minutes out of him in this game, could he have helped with some of the size issues? What do you think, Jacob?
It's tough to say. That was the post depth in general was one of the parts of the reason why I liked this matchup. And then, Mia, obviously, like you talked about, the foul trouble, only plays 11 minutes. But even just in those 11 minutes, he had 2 rebounds and he tried to go up for a bunny under the basket that he missed badly. It's tough to, project what could have been, because he's still an enigma on this team to me. I'm not, looking to, I'm full of just no vitriol in what's left of my heart today. So I'm not going to slander anyone, but he is still an enigma, for me, looking at, the fit with this group. And he played a big part in the most notable win of the season. Right. But other than that, and,
who was that against?
That was against Creighton. People forget, but he played a big part in that.
North Florida,
North Florida, the biggest win of the year.
He had 6 dunks against South Dakota. Don't forget, people forget.
He did have 6 dunks against South Dakota, but it's still just like maybe. It'll take some time to I think he's still trying to find like the exact ideal role, and it's gonna have to. It's December. You're going to have to, get down to brass tacks at some point. He's the biggest dude on the court. He's going to play. But, like, the perfect ideal role for him, I think, remains to be seen with this group.
And now you get another several days off.
Yeah, which apparently doesn't help him, per Jacob's point. Mm-hmm. The other thing about me, he got, as soon as he got a foul, 20 seconds in, you're like, well, that's going to be an issue the entire game.
That's how I felt.
And then every time he was in, it was just so frustrating because he couldn't stay foul free when he was in. But and again, here I got like, give me some room to do this. But like Kohler, how many fouls did Kohler even end up? 1. Kohler ended up with 1 foul in that game. Now, did he play a hell of a game? Yeah. Did he get a ridiculous amount of rebounds? Yeah. Is 1 foul too little for the amount of contact that he was a part of in that game? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Mia couldn't stay out there for a freaking second without getting a foul. The entire game. And he's, that was the thing we were worried about with him too, to be honest, mm-hmm. Or at least I was. Oh man. Well, yeah, I guess like Kaleb, you started kind of on fire about this, about the rebounds, about these sorts of things, but how much does this extend to your overall concern does this give you then? Or like, how much are you willing to say this was a bit of an anomaly and one in the second half where they lost a whole lot of juice and effort? Or is this something that now you've got some like real concerns about rebounding in particular?
Well, it's the things that Nebraska had done well through the first part of the season. And I think you can even say in the loss to St. Mary's was it looked like the effort was there for 40 minutes. And that comes from the rebounding. That comes from the defensive side of the ball. We saw maybe 10 minutes of effort today. Maybe. And that is a concern because now you're into Big Ten play, and these games count more than your North Florida and your South Dakota and your even UTRG alphabet. Like, these games count more. You've already got those wins. Those are done. But you put up those effort against teams that you should have outmatched, and you did. That's a concern for me. I started thinking about, like, as the game was going, and it got to 42-point spread at one point, and in my head I went, my NCAA tournament confidence rating is down to about a 7. Mm-hmm. Like, that's where I was feeling this going.
Wow.
with how bad that was. Because if you have the offense, which has really only shown up for 2 games now, out of 8. So you've got a 25% chance that your offense is going to show up in a way that it needs to. And if the defense happens to have an off night, well, you're not out there. Like you're not in the game at all. So this is very concerning for me. And I know that like Bigelow said, the team has not played well last year and so far this year. If they've got a long stretch between games, we'll see what it looks like. You're back at home this next Friday. It's your conference home opener. you need to come out and play really, really well. Jack, you and I yesterday said you're going to get one, and you got to go 1-1.
Yeah, you do.
Well, you lost this first one. Now you have to have this other one.
Maybe this will look stupid, but like I trust this team, or at least the core of this team, and I trust Fred enough that I'm not ready to panic after this one game, despite how ugly it was. And I think things really snowballed for a variety of reasons in this game. And Michigan Michigan played incredibly well, and Nebraska played increasingly worse as the game went on. And so, yeah, I'm going to need more data points, and especially when you saw Nebraska's performance against the St. Mary's, right? And obviously Creighton, and against against those teams. But the type of team Michigan State is, like, I think we can agree, right? That's the style of team that's going to be the problem for Nebraska.
Yes.
There's going to be some good matchups and some bad matchups in the Big Ten, I would think, right? Going forward. And I don't know, Jacob, I don't know exactly who they are, which is which, because I don't know yet enough about all these teams, but starting to get familiar with them, I have a feeling that'll kind of be, we'll know which teams bring more of a challenge against Nebraska than they might, regularly.
Definitely. And yeah, if you noticed me look like I saw a ghost a couple minutes ago, it's because I have one of my computer screens on KenPom and Torvik looking at analytics and projections for the season. On both of those websites before today's game, Nebraska was projected to go 18-11 on the season. That has since refreshed after analytics were added to the Michigan State result. And the projected record on both websites is now 16-13 with a 9-11 record in the Big Ten. So that has since refreshed. Nebraska, it's 16-13, 8-12. In the on KenPom, 16-13, 9-11 on Torvik is the current projection. Torvik does game grades from 1 to 100. Do you want to guess what the game grade for Nebraska was today from 13. 1 to 100? Very close, Kaleb. It was a 14. So that was very, very close. Very close. It was a 14.
Jack, give him a 3.5. 3.5.
3.5. That's my favorite.
Yeah. So I'm looking at just over here looking at these analytics sites. For the record, Torvik gives Nebraska's tourney odds as a 66.8% still, even after today's result. So
interesting.
Looking at that, and then looking ahead to Indiana, Torvik projects a 2-point win for Nebraska over Indiana, and KenPom projects a 1-point win over Indiana. Looking ahead to Friday.
Listen, I mean, honestly, but they go in there, go into a raucous crowd, and have a good game against Indiana. It will be, for at least the time being, this game will be buried. And they've had this game before. I mean, despite my in the moment, perhaps exaggeration at the beginning, they've had this game before. It's usually been against Creighton, to be honest, but I believe they beat them this year. So they didn't have that this year.
Yeah, you're right. They did beat Creighton.
Did they beat them?
Yeah,
Am I looking at the schedule right? Okay. So they beat Creighton this year. So that didn't happen, but you've seen this game before. Even during seasons that ended up going well. And I'm not saying those issues won't come back, but we've also seen it. So, and for whatever reason, Nebraska's kind of got Indiana's number a little bit, since even in seasons when Indiana should have been a lot better than Nebraska.
Yeah. So this is, if you want to play a game of what a difference a year makes. So today is December 7th. A year ago yesterday, Nebraska was coming off the Creighton ass whooping at home and blew a double-digit lead at the barn against Minnesota in their Big Ten opener. People forget about how much
I'm trying to remember that game.
How much of a debacle that Big Ten opener was last year at the barn against a bad Minnesota team, where I believe Nebraska was up 15 and wound up losing by 11. I think they got reverse, like full reverse, like they had a double-digit lead, blew it, and lost by double digits to Minnesota. That was a year ago yesterday. So that, there was some bad vibes, some bad feelings all around. And I'm not going to try to say, they're going to do the same thing again. It's going to be a full 180. But if you, look at how, a year ago this week, they lost by 29 to Creighton at home, went on the road 3 days later for their Big Ten opener and lost by 9 to a bad, 11 to a bad Minnesota team. So it just kind of, a little eerily similar. I said what I said about layoffs and prep. They had 5 days to prep for Creighton 2 weeks ago, and that was fine. So it just was something that popped into my head. But that's where last year's team was at a year ago today. And then they came home and got the big win against Michigan State, and everything that followed. So who knows what is to come in the coming week? But I mean, it's I'm sure if you're a fly on the wall at the Hendricks Training Complex for the next couple of days, you're going to hear some colorful thoughts from.
Hey, does Fred have colorful thoughts? Yes. Not like angry.
Yes.
What is Fred angry? What's Fred angry like? What can we tell? I mean, I could kind of you could tell he was there at the post-game show.
I think what gets him fired up the most is I think it's just like the little stuff. Like it's the little stuff like today, like rebounds, like the effort stuff, like the things that you have to do to even give your team a chance. Like rebounds, defensive effort. I mean, I think it's effort more than anything. Like the word would be effort. Like if you're not gonna, show the effort that he knows you're capable of, that's what's going to get him the most fired up. We heard it on the post game. He doesn't tend to get very fired up in game, but I think he's definitely capable of it. And I think, it starts with the effort stuff. And that's, that's something that I know him and Nate Lenzer for sure are going to be, I'm sure that it will be something that's harped on over the next few days, leading into this Indiana game.
Do you guys realize how massive of a shot Cale Jacobson hit for Nebraska today?
No.
In the final minute of that blowout, hit that 3-pointer. If he doesn't, Nebraska loses by 40 instead, that would have tied for the 10th worst losing margin in program history.
Nice.
And then it would have, thanks to Husker Hoop Central for putting out the screenshot on that. Which, by the way, would have tied 3 other times Nebraska has lost by 40 in the 2009-10 season at Texas, lost 91-51. In the during World War II, lost at DePaul 55-15. And then in the 94-95 season, lost at Oklahoma State 93-53.
Well, that was big country, so that was acceptable, probably. That would. Most likely. Wow. Okay. That 3 is like the touchdown. What's his name? The Baylor transfer guy who came into fall camp heavy and had to be asked to leave. He scored against Michigan last year. What was that dude's name?
Yeah. What was that dude's name?
1 year and we forgot that dude's name. The Baylor transfer.
Yeah.
I can't think of his name. Somebody on the chat's going to say it
I
for
can't
me.
either. Yep.
What the crap was that dude's name? Unbelievable. Somebody will put it down. I see we got people typing. Well, we got one person. Anyway.
Josh Fleeks.
He was on Fleeks.
That's right.
I figured Josh Fleeks would come up in this post-game show.
Absolutely.
Like I was like, this feels like a Josh Fleeks type, I knew his name then, of course.
Name a random former Husker. You're gonna beat me if you say Josh Fleeks.
I mean, he has a big spot in the history of Nebraska football, though. If you think about it, kept the non-shutout streak going with the
literally and figuratively big spot.
Yeah,
check out the holiday cheer on Nebrasketball.
It matches my mood. Very nice job, Josh. Thank you for that. For putting a little Santa hat on. Nebrasketball. One other thought, guys. Obviously it was a good atmosphere in Michigan State. It felt like they just had all the momentum in the world. Sean Morris was just sobbing. I think that helped. He was so happy with what he saw. At one point he made a good point, which I hadn't thought of, but that's essentially that the Michigan State student section. I don't know if you guys know this. They made up the airball chant. So they do this. This is the thing that they do when balls don't hit the rim. Michigan State had the idea, like, what if we say air, as in air just around the hoop, and ball, and keep chanting at a player. And I thought it was cool of Sean Morris to give a little history fun nugget like that during the game. So kudos. I
know what you're doing with that. I thought it was Sean Morris handled it poorly because that's how he does his entire job. But the airball chant was cool when they were doing it the first time, because there was such a long delay from the action getting back to going. And they kept it, they kept the chant going the whole time. There are a lot of times, even at PBA, that they'll say air ball 3 times and just kind of like, that's it. So that part,
Michigan State invented doing it for a long time. Is that what I'm to understand?
Yeah, Michigan State knows how to do it for a long time. Yes.
And as soon as they made that butt alley-oop, I was like, you're never going to not see this again in your life. You won't go 10 minutes for the rest of your life, at least on BTN, and not see this. You
couldn't go 10 seconds at the halftime.
And I think I literally underestimated that after the fact. Now, I think it's cool. One of the things that's nice is there's going to be a double feature documentary on Northwestern football's Coach of the Year season last year, and then Inside Story, the butt alley-oop will be back-to-back tonight. You can watch that on Big Ten Network. And so it's a nice little double feature for folks to catch. One thing the point I was trying to make before I got really sassy is that it was obviously a good environment there, holiday cheer and the like. I was looking at the schedule though, guys. Nebraska plays no weekend night games on the road against teams. Like they have gotten the most sleepy road schedule possible much of the rest of the year, which could be an advantage.
Take advantage of it.
If they play like crap, obviously it won't matter, but like 11 a.m. Sunday games all over,
yeah, baby.
Like tons of them. Noon Sunday games, tons of Sunday games. So that'll be interesting. Like I feel like the timing, they're going to be in fewer like raucous crowds than you normally would ever be in a conference season like this. So
hell yeah, wake up on a Sunday, church, grandma's chicken, and Nebraska men's basketball. Let's ride.
But not Friday night at Pinnacle Bank Arena.
No.
Oh, they'll be back. They'll be back. The crowd will be back. They'll have a good turnout. Friday night is a fun time to have a game, and we will be back again as well during the day on Friday. We'll see if Caleb's calmed down by then. I would really like him to.
Yeah, we'll see where that number is.
I kept it. Yeah, wow. Caleb's number is going to be. Oh my gosh, they just brought Jeff Sims in the football game. Oh my gosh.
Oh yes.
Wow, it is a real 2023 Nebraska football type postgame show right now. In any case, we will again be here Friday for brunch. Kaleb is going to put his number into the negative. He thinks Nebraska just is not able to rebound ever again. And they're
actually going to stop playing.
Mine will go up. I knew this would happen at some point. We would flip places on this whole thing, and it may be happening right now. And then after the game, hopefully on a freaking happier note, doesn't everyone miss me, having drank beers during the game, drinking out of bowls, those sorts of things? Or do you like this version better? I don't know.
I like the party version better.
So maybe another party version on Friday night. That would be good too if we could.
Yeah.
We could do that. All right. Any final thoughts, guys, before we wrap it up?
No.
Not really. No. I almost said something. I almost said something about the road venues left on Nebraska's schedule and how there may only be like 3 road environments on there that scare me. But no, I said it anyway. Whatever. But that's kind of no final thoughts on today. We just tried to avoid doing the YouTube version of an autopsy to the best of our ability.
If I run into Tommy Lee Jones, I'm gonna have him give me the little Men in Black memory eraser on this. And just act like it didn't happen. But I'd like him to do that for a lot of my sports life for the next 20 years. So that might be a little hard. But in any case, thank you for joining us. Jacob, Kaleb, thank you for hanging out with me. If I had to do this alone, that would not have been good. Now I've got to go apologize to the rest of everyone else after this is all over. All right, let's wrap this thing up, and we will see you next time with After Nebrasketball. Bye-bye, everyone.